years. Thanks, Jim.
And we'll do the anniversary waltz.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hopefully not you and I doing the waltz, but at the control panel, producer extraordinaire Jim Walsh.
Hello.
Man, I haven't seen you since last year.
Yeah, I mean, so much weird stuff has gone on since you took time off.
I took time off. I like how you say that.
Yeah.
I was not busy doing anything.
Oh, yeah, you were just laying around. Yeah, well, you were in Vegas.
Yes.
You were out there for the CES.
Yes.
Which is what they call it now.
Yes.
It's not short for anything. It's just CES.
Yeah, they dropped the Consumer Electronics Show.
Yeah.
Just said CES, just like the IBM thing, a few years ago or whatever.
International whatever it is.
Business Machines, I believe it was.
Oh, is that what it stands for?
FedEx, I think, has done the same thing. So, yeah.
And then you were in California.
I was in California for a few days, too.
Yeah. I understand you met with some people out there. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, that'd be fine. Okay. That'd be fine, yeah. We were at the studio for the Three Stooges.
Yeah, tell me about the Three Stooges connection here.
So,
I love the Stooges.
Well, you know my affiliation with National Day Calendar.
Right.
The founder of National Day Calendar. So we've been kind of going through this process of finding an agent because people have been wanting to represent us because we do a lot of appearances, as you know, across the country. And anyway, this company had reached out to us a few months ago, basically about that. They want to represent us, and as we were talking, they actually called because of the winter. Oh, the Richie Valens Winter Dance Party.
Winter Dance Party, yeah.
Yes, they represent
Clear Lake,
that
Iowa.
as well. Yes, very good, Jim.
Thank you.
And they represent that as well. And we were talking about that.
Yeah.
And then we got on to, and then they started explaining their scenario that they were founded by Curly, one of the Three Stooges, and the company is called C3 Entertainment.
Oh.
So they go back, and I didn't know this when I got there, but the original Three Stooges, in fact, I think the four, when Curly left and Schmo took his place. Shemp, there you go.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I believe they're all brothers, right?
Mo, Curly, and Shemp were brothers.
Okay.
Larry might have been like a distant cousin.
Okay, that's right. That's right. So that's kind of the story there, and so we met the grandson of Curly.
Whoa!
And
very nice.
it was kind of cool. He's a pretty laid back individual, but it was cool to be there.
He didn't run around on the floor going, whoop, whoop,
nope.
Oh.
Yeah, wise guy. But it was fun to be there. They gave us some bottles of Wise Guy root beer.
Certainly.
So it was kind of interesting.
I ain't numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
So it was fun. We had a good time there. CES was interesting as well. Went to the drone rodeo. Then by the way, speaking of the 5th anniversary, our very often in-studio guest host, Marv Dorner, sitting next to me as well. Marv.
Ivan.
I noticed it was the memory of that was triggered by drone. So it was like you were controlling me from afar.
Yes,
that's exactly right.
I see how this works.
I'm so glad you made it here today.
Yeah.
So
me too.
Scott couldn't make it. Scott's the other person that is usually here to take my place occasionally, and he's been here for every other. He was at the first show, as a matter of fact. And but he's busy today, so he couldn't.
Mr. Wild, you're talking
Mr. Wild, yeah.
Stupid jobs.
I know.
Getting
Sometimes they get in the way of things, but So we were at CES and the drone rodeo. That was interesting. I was supposed to go in the drone that will fly people around.
And you didn't?
And, they weren't there. There was weather issues that day. The wind was over 30 miles an hour. So a company called eHang, they didn't even show up to the drone rodeo. They just didn't go because of the weather. But I was scheduled to fly around on this thing, and I was actually, everybody else is like, "You're really going to fly in the drone?" Absolutely. Sign me up for that job, But I'm telling everybody, if they can fly me around, pretty much everybody else is okay, since I'm such a small guy, But it was interesting. There was, what amazed me is that even though the wind was 30 miles an hour, how many drones were out there flying around in this stuff? I'm always amazed at how well that they perform even in windy conditions, even these small ones.
Just so small, or
they had the racing drones
kind of unaffected. The speed allows it to get through, cut through. Or?
Yeah, I suppose. And if you program them, it actually allows. If you're not manually flying them. That's where you kind of get in trouble sometimes because it doesn't, it's difficult for you to regain control but if the computer's flying them, they seem to be fine. So
right up to the battery. Guys.
Yeah. But they were doing some crop dusting, they had this huge drone that had a tank of water underneath it, and it was spraying the ground. And I'm just talking about the future stuff. So they had drones for taking care of agriculture. They had, of course, the racing drones there. I was wearing a set of goggles. I don't know if you've seen these or not, by Epson. I thought these were the coolest thing. They look like Back to the Future glasses. I guess I should call them glasses instead of goggles. With augmented reality, but you could see through the lenses. So I could see you pretty much okay. I mean, there was a little bit of a darkness to them.
Right.
And they had kind of a mirror image on them, which I'm guessing is the reason they need that is so that they can project the image in there, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, as I'm looking at you, for example, right here, I could also see the telemetry coming back from the drone. So as the camera is shooting around or whatever, I could actually see that. So I'm thinking to myself, this is absolutely amazing, and $700 for these glasses, which is, I think, amazing as well, because most of them...
That is semi-affordable for some of
it
them.
is, actually. If you're going to get into that industry, I think that's pretty cool. So,
sure.
So, yeah. Anything else that you've seen at CES? We're going to not spend a lot of time on this. But
I wish I would have followed CES closer than I did. I was so busy with other things that I didn't really keep an eye on it. But, there was so much autonomous vehicle stuff.
It's a huge thing this year, I guess. And we're going to get into that because... 5 years ago, that's kind of the theme of the show today, is that things that have advanced since the first day of this show,
right?
Things we didn't even talk about 5 years ago, and autonomous cars was one of them.
Yeah.
And now it's like everybody's buzzword right now. It's crazy how that industry is coming along. So, and of course, drones are the other. That was and I'd say 3D printing was a big part of the show as well.
Yes, it was.
But not to the extent of these other like autonomous cars.
At the time, it was speculation. We were saying, well, they hope to do this, this, and this.
Right. Yeah, and now, I was actually in a vehicle on Fremont Street. They were testing it for a couple of days down. There was a shuttle running autonomously, holds 12 people, and it was going back and forth down the street. You just hopped in it and go. And it was funny as I was sitting in there watching people react. They'd get in there and they're like, is there nobody driving this thing?
Well, there is.
No, the computer's driving it for you, so it was kind of funny. After the break, everybody, Marv, Jim, and I will go over the last 5 years of technology, so come on back.
Right now, one above.
The home for ABC News at the top of the hour is Super Talk 1270.
Follow the Guru of Geek at Facebook.com/The Tech Ranch or Twitter at Guru of Geek or TheTechRanch.com. Here again is your Guru of Geek, Marlo Anderson.
And we want to thank all of our listeners across the country and around the world who follow us on the Blueberry Network. We're also on the Tech Podcast Network, I can't remember their slogan. If it's tech, it's here.
It's techie.
We're also on the Roku, on iTunes, on TuneIn, of course, our own app, Radio Pup. All kinds of places you can catch the Tech Ranch later. If you want to listen to this broadcast again or any past broadcasts, we have all kinds.
Yeah, we got caught up on the podcast over the weekend.
Cool.
Well, you were away for 2 weeks.
Yes,
that
I
made
was.
it a lot easier
to get caught up.
Oh yeah.
Host is gone. We can get caught up.
Yeah,
that's pretty funny actually. So. And of course, I'll throw out to Rockin' Dave Blair.
Rockin' Dave.
He was here last week too, stepping in. I figured he would be a good. He just came back from CES the day before, so he had all that stuff fresh in his mind.
Nice.
So haven't listened to his show yet. I'll have to catch up with that later today. But anyway, in the studio, Marv Dorner and Jim Walsh, and we're talking about the last 5 years on the Tech Ranch. This is our 5th anniversary show.
Yeah,
I have to admit, Jim, when I and I know you weren't here right away. Now you've been on the show for almost 4 years. I
came in the summer of 2012, so it's more like 4.5 years.
Oh my goodness!
Me.
Wow,
I missed like the first 6 months.
Yes. Dean, I think
Dino was here. Dean Mestel was here.
Yep.
Dean's now working. He's got one of the bigger insurance.
Yeah,
firms
he does.
in town.
Yeah, absolutely.
Doing very well.
So you've been here for 4.5 years.
He got out of radio. He's doing a lot better.
Pretty amazing. I'll be quiet now.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. The industry, we'll talk about the industry of radio some other time. So, but yeah, we're going to go over some of the things that probably weren't around 5 years ago,
Yeah.
or just being thought about. And first thing that Marv and I were just talking about is GPS in our phones.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why don't you talk about how that's advanced, Marv?
We were kind of chatting about it earlier, and I remember this was about 8 or 9 years ago. I had a Microsoft Pocket PC. It was my first smartphone.
Okay.
The iPhone maybe had just barely started to come out.
Well, in fact, it's 10 years ago last week.
Yep,
of
last
the
week.
first phone. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it maybe been out a couple of years, so it's still in its infancy. And Microsoft was still kind of leading the way, almost having a full Windows machine in your hand.
Right.
It was clunky. It was thick. It had a attach, keyboard you'd flip up and all this stuff. It was kind of BlackBerry-ish. But the one thing that was really cool about it, and it was maybe advanced, was you could have an attachment GPS unit that you just snap onto it, and it would
Kind of
be
like a dongle type of thing, yeah.
And then, but it was a size of maybe a postage stamp times 2, and then about an inch thick.
Okay.
But you'd have to have that somewhere where you could get a GPS signal, and then it would pull onto a downloaded map, and you could kind of see where you're going. And
Interesting.
So, it was kind of the emergence of having that anywhere you wanted.
Sure.
You could be walking around with it. Geocaching hadn't quite caught on yet. It was just maybe on the cusp. 5 years ago, that was kind of a new big thing.
It was. Well, in fact, if you were really big into geocaching, you probably bought a TomTom or Garmin would be another one. And those are the two leaders in that industry, and of course, nowadays, it's all built into your phone. If you have a smart device, you get Google Maps, and away you go. I mean,
You can go anywhere. That's all we
amazing.
used. We went to Phoenix. It was about a year ago now, and just driving around Phoenix, which none of us had really done much of. We did everything on our phone. It had a GPS unit built into the car,
Right.
and we never even turned it
Right,
on. It
right.
was just pull the phone up, and then you'd go into a tunnel, and your GPS would know it, or your phone would know it, and it would turn dark. And then you'd come out and it would flip back to light. I mean, it was so smart and so just diverse on everything. It knew where you were going. It knew how to get there. It was amazing.
And you're a Droid user, right?
I am.
So do you use Android Auto?
I don't.
Okay. I just downloaded it for the first time yesterday. And I think I'm going to start playing with that a little bit. And then, if you mount your phone in your vehicle, you can just say the OK Google, and your phone turns on to make phone calls or grab music and or navigate you.
You just turned on like 100 phones probably.
Probably. I have a great story, by the way. So Amazon, of course, has the Amazon Echo, and there's Alexa. Right, so of course, in fact, I was going to bring Alexa in today. She's actually been a guest here occasionally as well.
Yeah, a couple of times.
Love Alexa, and so Nick, business partner over at Awesome too, right? Everybody, I don't know, about a month and a half, 2 months ago, I got everybody an Echo Dot just to play around with these things at home or whatever, right? And it's just a smaller version of the full standing Echo. So anyway. He was playing around with it, and then one night, here comes a commercial on, and of course it says, Alexa, order flowers, and it turns on and wants to order flowers. So it hears that word Alexa and immediately springs to life.
It's real good at picking that up.
It's
and
amazing.
No one even thought of that 5 years ago, that this would be even in our vocabulary, that you would be having these things. And last week, I was watching 2 Google Homes fight online. They had one with a male voice and one with a female voice, and one would ask a question, and one would try to answer it, and the other one would counter it, and it went back and forth. And they ran this streaming online for
I love it.
Like 3-4 days. I know it was just going on,
Unbelievable.
and they were just going back. It sounded like an old married couple just kind of bickering back and
I need
forth.
to go check that out.
It was
Bickersons.
I wonder if it's even there. I bet if you look, it's probably still going on.
Sure. Interesting. Yeah, it's amazing how who would have thought that a voice attendant would even be, or an assistant, voice assistant, would even be something that would even be plausible, much less practical. Now, I don't even know what I'd do without it. That's what's crazy about it. It's become so integrated in my life. The last 2 weeks when I'm not around Alexa, I don't even, I'm so used to saying, Alexa, add Marv Dorner, 12 o'clock Tuesday on my calendar, and bang, it's on my calendar. I don't even think about it anymore because I have them stationed through my house and in my office. So I just say Alexa wherever I'm at, and she goes to work for me,
Beautiful.
So it's become so integrated. I'm so used to it that when I don't have that, I feel lost almost now.
Right, but that's the cool part. Going back to the GPS, now you can just say where you're going.
Yes.
And Google will just pull it up on the map, and then you hit navigate, and it takes you there.
And even your remote controls.
Yep.
Do you have a voice-activated remote control?
I do. I'm still not using the voice-activated stuff.
So
my brother uses it all the time. I don't.
So, of course, we get back yesterday, and the grandkids want to come over and see us, right? So they're all over at the house, and our 4-year-old grandson wants to watch something on Netflix. He just grabs the remote control, pushes voice, and goes, I forget what he was wanting to look up, but, I mean, just bang. He's so used to using it, he doesn't know how to read or write, but yet is able to control remote control because he can just say the words that he wants to go watch.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. It really is. And we used to get up off the couch to go and turn the channels.
Oh, that was barbaric.
Between 7 and 13, it was
Had
terrible.
To walk all the way across the living room.
Yeah,
and back again.
And then you'd have to move the rabbit ears a little bit.
And it was uphill both ways.
Did you ever fight with your siblings over this? Go turn it to channel 11. Nobody would want to leave the couch.
That's what kids were for. So the adults didn't have to go do that.
True.
You just sent the kids up to, and then you'd grab the pliers and hook it on and crank it around because you lost the knob.
I remember that,
See?
actually.
It's all coming back.
That's right. And, of course, aluminum foil on the rabbit ears to get better reception.
And now everybody's just surfing on Rokus and cutting the cord.
It is amazing.
That's probably a huge leap, in the last 5 years. Is cord cutting has gotten just so prevalent.
Yep. Why don't you explain what cord cutting is? Because there's probably a lot of people who don't know what you're talking about.
Primarily everybody who got their TV services over the last probably 20, 25 years was doing it on cable.
Right.
We were all subscribing to cable. And about 4, 5, 6 years ago, whenever, most of the stations started coming online with their content.
Yeah.
And it was limited, and it would kind of get down to where you'd have to subscribe to certain things. And now it's to the point where they stream almost anything online. So there's a lot of people who are either reducing their cable subscriptions down to like a basic so they can get local channels and a couple other things, or they're just removing cable completely and they subscribe only to what they can do online.
Right.
And it's just gotten to the point where the cable companies are actually kind of integrating it into their boxes a little bit so you can stream things in the box, which is, I think, a move just to kind of counter that a little bit.
The whole industry is very fluid right now, I guess is the best way to say it, because nobody really knows. And I think everybody understands that maybe the writing is on the wall for traditional television, because the ability to get content anytime you want, and you're not competing against other channels anymore. CBS versus NBC versus ABC, for example. You're competing against YouTube and these other things for eyeballs now. So I remember we were in Kansas City about a month and a half ago, and the number one station in town was talking about that they had like a 6.3 share. And the guy that was next to him was like, "Oh my goodness, you guys have a 6.3," and he goes, "No, you don't understand. Just 2 years ago, we were at a 12.8."
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's because people are cutting the cord and they're consuming their content online.
Absolutely.
Simple as that. So after the break, everybody, we'll continue this discussion, and I believe Miss Metaverse will be joining us as well.
Nice.
So come on back.
Right now, one above.
Dave Ramsey is heard here. Super Talk 1270.
We're back to the Tech Ranch. Stream this program now at supertalk1270.com. Here is your guru of geek, Marlo Anderson.
And we want to thank everybody for joining us on our 5th anniversary show. Who would have thought we'd have made 2 months, much less 5 years? I remember the first time I was on the show, I was shaking so bad.
Oh, yeah.
It was unbelievable.
Wow.
I don't
know if I've ever seen you like that.
It was amazing. I just didn't. I was visibly shaking, and I couldn't get past that for the first couple of weeks.
Those microphones can be kind of daunting.
But it's not like I'd never been on the other side of it before. It was just that because as the host, it was like the pressure was on me now to have this conversation. I guess nowadays it's like no big deal. Anymore, it's just,
you forget you're doing it.
That's exactly right. And unfortunately, that is so true sometimes that you forget you're in front of a microphone.
Just don't cuss.
Exactly.
Don't say anything too dirty.
Joining us in the studio, Marv Dorner and Jim Walsh, and joining us from the Big Island. I guess not the Big Island.
The Big Island, wow.
She's in Hawaii today?
The Long Island.
The Long Island. That's
Long
right.
Island.
Yes, thank you, Jim. Miss Metaverse. So, Katie, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Marlo. How are you doing? Happy 5 years.
Well, thank you. Thanks for being such a big part of the show over the last. Let's see, you've been on now, what, about 2.5 years or so?
Yeah, almost. I think it'll be 3 years. I think in August or something.
Unbelievable. So time does fly by. There's no doubt about it. So, and of course, we're just kind of going over some of the things that maybe weren't around 5 years ago, and we were just talking about GPS and phones. And I think we're going to move into 3D printing a little bit. And Katie, I know you're a big follower of 3D printing, so why don't you explain to everybody what 3D printing is, and then we'll get into where it's advancing to.
Okay, so yes, I would say that within the last 5 years, 3D printing went from being a really exciting emerging technology, meaning that it's not really quite available to everyone yet, and it's still new. And that was kind of where it was at within the last 5 years. It went from being this technology where, you have, it looks almost like a microwave, and inside of it you'll have like a cartridge that's like a regular printer, but it's like an open box, and what it does is you can feed whatever kind of filament you want the 3D printer to work with. So originally, about 5 years ago, 3D printers, for the most part, were using these plastic filaments. So it looked like this big spool of a thick plastic type of thread that you would feed into the 3D printer, and then it would print out, it would melt that down, and then print it into designs. And those designs would be something that you had created or uploaded, from a computer, or a model, something you're working with. So it went from being something like that, where it was more like just one type of material, like a plastic, and then later that's evolved into a lot more. So we're starting to see, multi-material printers today, whereas, let's say 5 years ago, it was only plastic or one type of material.
So I've seen a couple of very unique printers at CES, and I'll get into that in a little bit here. Marv, what's your take on 3D printers?
I've only used one a couple of times, and I'm just fascinated watching the thing just kind of grow. Whatever you're modeling, it just kind of starts with nothing, and as the plastic passes over at a rapid speed, things just tend to take shape. And but the advancement that, and maybe you've seen a bunch of this at CES, but the medical side of it seems to be kind of where it's really catching on and kind of going for the next foreseeable future. And that's just fascinating that they can, organs and muscle tissue and all kinds of stuff, they can just manufacture that on a printer. It just blows my mind.
It is pretty amazing. And I agree with you. I think there's going to be so much that's going to change over the next couple of years because of 3D printing. And I got a couple stories, a couple quick ones. I was in a co-working space about a year ago over in Meridian, Idaho. And this co-working space has 3 3D printers in there, and they also have a scanner so that you can scan a piece and then print it. And the 75-year-old farmer walks into this place. I'm sure he had never been in there before.
Yeah.
And he walks up to this counter, and he's got kind of this cog, and he puts it on the counter, and he goes, "Is there a way that you can replicate this?" And the gal looks at it, and she goes, "Yeah, I think so." So she takes it over, scans it, and within an hour, they have this printed plastic component. And I'm sure, you think about somebody who's 75 years old that probably had parents that rode horses.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And now he's almost like the Jetsons, where in an hour going to a local public library, basically, and getting a part, reconstituted in front of his eyes.
That he would have had to order, and it would have taken weeks probably to send to him.
Yeah.
Or make it somehow or whatever. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. So CES, by the way, has so I visited with a doctor there about 3D printing. And, she wasn't as far along with her company as what I've talked to other companies, but it is interesting where she feels in 10 to 20 years that organ replacement will be possible. And we're already starting to see, in fact, we interviewed a gentleman here about a year ago from Norway who had printed an ear and had attached it. And this conversation just stuck out so much to me because I'm like, okay, so the guy came in and you measured him for the ear and took DNA and he came back in 6 weeks and you guys did this work. And the doctor's like, well, no, he came in that morning and we put his ear on that afternoon.
Oh.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? And here they already have a biogel that they have ready to go. And then they inject the DNA into this, and then it multiplies, and they put it into the 3D printer, and it prints the ear out. And I'm like, you have to be kidding me. This is unbelievable.
Nobody saw that 5 years ago.
Nobody saw that 5 years ago. And then
Not even Katie.
That's right. And I don't think anybody saw this 5 years ago. And now there's a 3D printer that is a true 3D printer that is printing metal. And I looked at this thing, and it's just like filament, plastic filament. They now have metal that's on a spool, and it looked to me just like soldering iron metal. And this thing goes in there, and they were printing these metal parts. So, Jim.
It's interesting to me how the government is trying to catch up with all of this because there are some controversial issues involved with this. The thing about guns, the fact that you can get the plans and you can make your own assault rifle in the comfort of your own home.
Yeah.
Clearly, it's going to take the government and the lawmakers a while to kind of figure all this out.
I don't know how they even figure that out. I always think of it this way. It's like drones and anything else. If there's evildoers out there, they're going to figure out a way to take care of it. They're going to come up with a way to take care of their mission. So, granted, you got to have some regulations in place. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But I just don't know how you regulate something like that.
Yeah, good question.
I don't. Unless you take it away from the general public, the ability to print these type of things. And then what happens then is it becomes, it's nothing. And this is the way I always look at this. If you're a drug lord, $1 million for a 3D printer that prints guns is nothing.
Yeah.
To you and me, it's everything we have, and then some. But to somebody like that where $1 million means nothing, they'll order 20 of them. So how do you stop them? I don't know, Jim. I'm
make it illegal. I doubt that would work.
It doesn't. They're already in the illegal business. Yeah. They're already criminals. What difference does it make to them? It's be a small part of the big thing that they're doing already.
I know.
So I don't know. Katie, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree with you. I think that I think accessibility is becoming much more common. Like you're saying, it's anybody who has the money could buy or have their own customized 3D printer made, and it's amazing what kind of stuff you can make with these 3D printers nowadays. I mean, another thing that you were talking about before, just like how people are 3D printing organs from stem cells and things like that. There's also even artificial organs that are being printed. So just imagine that if you're able to 3D print artificial organs and things like that, it's so easy to make things that look real that could be fake and used for these bad purposes. But I think education and knowing about this stuff is really going to be what's key. It's going to be keeping the public informed and kind of working together to maybe create a better world so that people, drug lords won't need to be around, It's scary for sure, but I think that, there's always balance in the end. I think that as new technologies come out, we find a way to get a hold on things and it kind of balances out, so...
And I always look at, I had this debate with somebody not too long ago on Facebook, as a matter of fact. This person was like afraid to even travel anywhere in the United States. Why would you go to Chicago when the murder rate is like crazy or whatever, right? And that is true.
Well, a little perspective though.
But that's exactly right. All you have to do is go to the FBI website, and it'll show you a chart of criminal activity over, the rate of murders and rate of everything else that goes on in this country, right? And you will see a significant decline over the last 25 years. In fact, our murder rate in this country is about 50% of what it was just 20 years ago. And you wouldn't know that because all you hear about on the news, 20 years ago, we didn't have 24/7 coverage of news. Now because you have these channels, that's all they have, and they just regurgitate this stuff and figure out, every little nuance to these murders all the time. You would think that we're a country on fire.
Oh, yeah.
Because of all of this. And that's not the case at all.
What it'd be like in Bismarck. I mean, nobody's going to do a newscast saying yesterday in Bismarck, 50,000 people did not get involved in any crime.
That's right.
You know,
that's exactly right. So
be refreshing, though.
It would be. It would be very refreshing.
We got nothing to say on the news. Here's a picture of a puppy.
Right. Even the police, the old statistic, the average cop in any given city will go through his entire career never having to draw his firearm in anger.
That's correct.
Never having to draw his gun.
Yep. So it is interesting. Again, you would never know that. You would never know that. Yeah. So any final thoughts on 3D printing, Marv?
I think it's one of those emerging technologies that's been emerging for a long time, but I think it still has a long ways to go.
Oh, yeah.
Just to make things robust and then to find that niche.
Yep.
It's still got to find that hook.
But I think there are becoming many ways that it can be used now. So I think it'll really change how things, and probably how we even order stuff in the future. We may just order something and they'll send us the plan so we can print it at home. Yeah. Amazing when you think about that. After the break, everybody, we will move our conversation to autonomous vehicles. So come on back.
Right now, 5 above zero.
The Red River Farm Network. Ag News is here on Super Talk 1270.
Follow the Guru of Geek everywhere he goes. Post your comments or questions at thetechranch.com. Once again, your Guru of Geek, Marlo Anderson.
And we are celebrating our 5th anniversary show with pumpkin scones from Alice. You baked these up for us today. They look absolutely amazing. I'll have to have one after the show here. Yes, it is our 5th anniversary show, and in studio we have Marv Dorner, of course our producer extraordinaire Jim Walsh. Marv is a
wow.
It is Monday,
you okay?
isn't it? Well, no, I'm
Marv
not.
defies description.
Yeah, no kidding.
I was thinking about the medical marijuana joke we had before.
Yeah. Boy, are you sure these are scones?
How the show would be better if anyway.
Let's be
Marv
here.
Dorner and Be Loud Entertainment.
Yes,
and
that's where the joke came from.
Still can't get it out here. So he is kind of my number one go-to person for when I'm not here to
on a
guest
Friday.
The show.
Hey, I need you Monday.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And that's usually when I give you enough time. Usually it's Sunday night. Hey, Marv, what are you doing tomorrow? Yeah. And of course from the Long Island, Miss Metaverse and Katie, how you doing? Glad to have you on the show today as well.
Oh, life is good on the Long Island.
On the island of Long.
The island of Long. I like that. So anyway, we're moving to autonomous cars, autonomous vehicles, and I think I'll let Marv open this segment up. So why don't you explain to everybody, give us your definition of an autonomous vehicle.
Autonomous vehicle. It's a vehicle, currently, the end game is no driver. I mean, that would obviously be the where we want to end up. But I think currently now it's having a driver in there to tell it where to go, make decisions, and be there for safety precautions. But basically I want to go from point A to point B. We program point B into the computer, and it takes me there and has different sensors and other things around the vehicle to kind of see oncoming traffic, pedestrians, traffic rules, follow all the laws of the land, and do it safely. And that's sort of where we're at. I think there's a lot of these tests going on in some of the bigger cities, which are just has somebody behind that wheel to step on a brake or swerve out of the way or do the things that it needs to do. So I think that's maybe the level 1 or level 2 autonomous, and level 4 is the just get in and it takes you where you want to go.
Yep. So would you have thought 5 years ago that we would be actually having this conversation today?
There was already hints, those rumors start up and Teslas were starting to come on the scene and that sort of thing. And there was all these things flying around. I think it's accelerating more rapidly than even I would guess. I
think, in fact, even the car manufacturers themselves, I mean, when you look at their predictions, models, whatever, they're talking maybe 2035, 2040. Right. Now there's talk of 2020.
Yeah, 2020 seems to be that
unbelievable
that number I keep hearing of kind of where it's going to go.
It's
turn it on.
Amazing how fast it's approaching. So, Katie, your thoughts on autonomous vehicles?
Yeah, I definitely think that we're on track for the last 5 years. I think that we're just about exactly kind of where I thought we'd be, but I agree with you guys. I think that, probably like around 2020, we'll definitely start seeing, it materialize into that next phase. So that's going to be exciting for sure. I mean, there's been a couple of setbacks, I'd say, but if you really look back at it all, I think that there hasn't been many setbacks. I think it's been pretty well received as far as accidents and things like that. If you really look at the bigger picture of it all, there's a Tesla incident that happened. I think when was that, last year?
Yep.
But besides that, a couple of like fender benders. I think with the Google car, right?
Yep.
I remember that happening as well, and that's pretty much it that I've heard of. So I think considering with all the testing going on, and even those big semi trucks, like that Freedom truck, the autonomous one, and seeing all these things become more and more public and ubiquitous everywhere, it's good to see, and I'm excited for it. I can't wait till the first fully autonomous cars are all becoming the new cars. All of them start coming out, so that'll be cool.
So have you been in an autonomous car yet?
I actually I haven't been in a fully autonomous car yet, and that's something I've definitely wanted to do. I was hoping to come out to CS this year, but definitely next year. And then I hope that I'll be able to sooner than later.
Cool,
sure.
Cool. Marv, how about you? Been in?
I've not.
Okay.
I've seen them, and I've online plenty of times watching people do it, but I've never had that experience of sitting in a car and looking forward and seeing nothing.
Sure.
Nobody's sitting behind the wheel.
Oh, actually, I forgot. I was in one. I forgot. I went to there was a car show at the Javits Center in New York City last spring, and I rode in the Toyota. I forget what it's called. Oh my goodness! It was one of the Toyota cars, and it's autonomous. It's like semi-autonomous.
Okay.
So that
Cool.
was neat. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I guess I've had the pleasure of being in, 25 of them now.
Wow.
So, and then probably my, I can't even see. It's still Monday. I can't spit things out here today, but, I'm unique in that regard. I guess that's my 15 minutes of fame here.
Yeah, you should have a little sticker or star or a little.
Yeah, I should,
something
right?
You should put on your shirt.
Yeah, every time I write another one, I get another sticker, right? All right, another gold star for Marlo.
Well, 25 be a silver star.
Yes, it will.
Got to get to 50 for my gold star, right?
Right.
That's pretty funny, guys. But yeah, it's been interesting the last couple of years. My work with autonomous vehicles, of course, has allowed me to be riding in some of these vehicles. I rode in the Peterbilt vehicle for the first test, and this is, I think, the first time I rode in a vehicle, it was interesting. I mean, you're nervous or whatever. After you've been in a few of them, you don't even think about it anymore. It's in fact, when I was in the Peterbilt vehicle a year ago, Bill Stemp is the gentleman's name with Peterbilt, and I think we had been riding like 40 minutes, and finally he asked, "Did you have some questions for me?" Or because we're just having a conversation, like we're having a conversation now about the grandkids and all this other stuff. So it was kind of funny in that regard that we both had been in so many or had spent so much time in autonomous vehicles that you just don't think about it anymore because the car is driving itself or the vehicle's driving itself. So I was almost in an accident in one, and Jim's laughing over here now. But what was great about that experience is that somebody had short-stopped in front of the vehicle that I was in.
Right.
And, we're in 8 lanes of traffic, and we're in one of the middle lanes, and this vehicle just comes to a screeching halt. And if it was you or I, we would have ran right in this vehicle, right?
Yep.
And I don't know if there was a squirrel on the road or what the deal was here, right? But my intuition would be to look to the left to see if there's an opening and then veer off that way, right? The car went to the right and didn't even bat an eye. I mean, it was just like bang to the right, went around the vehicle, and there was nothing to it.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my goodness. You talk about an eye-opening experience, with my heart in my throat at the same time. But that really, really showed me the potential for this technology and the amount of lives that we're going to save because of this.
Well, that goes back to the conversation we just had about the news. You never talk about all the great stuff it's going to do. You never talk about all the accidents it's going to prevent, all the lives it might save. Remember that Tesla accident last year? That's what's going to happen.
That's exactly right. And they love to talk about those type of things. So, Katie, any last things that over the last 5 years that you can think about that maybe have emerged? Putting you on the spot here. I think we lost Katie.
Me?
There we go. Yes, there we go. There you are. So, any other? We just got a couple minutes left. So, anything else that you can think of over the last 5 years that may have emerged that we haven't talked about?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, probably like the biggest thing that I would say would be, did we talk about drones? Because I want to talk about personal drones really quickly.
Yeah, that's okay. We did talk a little bit about it, but go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, I think one of the biggest things to look back in the last 5 years would be personal drones, because I remember that, back a couple years ago, people were really excited about the idea of having personal use drones, something like a camera to follow you around. But it was more of like a game, you had to control it manually, and it was a little bit more challenging, and not everybody was having an easy time with flying like the first personal drones that came out. Now, what's interesting is that if you look back, the company that's most popular is DJI, right?
Right.
Are you familiar with DJI?
Absolutely. Own their drones.
Everybody. Yes, so they've actually been around since 2006. And you look at it now, and they have, they went from having the Phantom 1 that's only been out since 2013, which is 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So it feels like they've been around. They've had multiple drones, and now they've come a long way to, going from being manually held, a little bit more challenging, to following you, shooting in 4K, flying for 27 minutes. So it's really exciting.
Pretty exciting. All right, Katie, we got to cut you off there. Thanks for being on the 5th anniversary show, Katie. Thanks, Marv. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
We're looking forward to another 5 years, everybody. So thanks again.